There we go. I promised you. Here's another one. Another legend. Rose Wright, Regionality. Thank you for saying yes. You're another one every year. The last few years we see you and it's like, we have to do one. But this year is the year. Welcome to Mackay. Welcome to Art. Thank you for your presentation yesterday.
It's my pleasure.
It was the inaugural Agritourism Forum.
For Tourism Australia.
Australia.
There have been many agritourism forums by other organisations, but the fact that Tourism Australia is now in the driving seat and really jumping on board and seeing the value and opportunity with agritourism is absolute music to my ears. So 20 years of going, hey, agritourism's the thing. No, it's not a thing. Well, actually, now it's a thing. So it's great. It's really great. It's wonderful.
It's really great. Look, I remember sharing a workshop with you back in Murray, Echuca. That was probably 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
And really, you were really leading the way in opening my, it was just content and thinking around food tourism and farm-to-plate opportunities for farmers and more rural experiences.
Yeah.
So I think first up, share with everybody, who's joining us live or coming back to watch the replay or listening to us on the Tourism Hub podcast. If you could just share a little bit about Regionality.
Sure.
And the work that you do and some context around the day yesterday. Sure. Your presentation and what were some key insights and takeaways?
Yeah, okay. So Regionality, I'll start with Regionality as my company. We're a really small specialised firm. We work across agriculture, food and tourism. So what that means is we work a lot with farmers. We work a lot with farming communities and organisations, both at a national, state and local level. We work with individual farmers, literally thousands of farmers from the top of Queensland to the tip of Tasmania and, wherever they want us to go, really. And we've been doing that now as Regionality, or at a previous name, we won't worry about that.
I think Regionality is brilliant.
It's pretty good. I was pretty happy with that. That was a 3 a.m. Oh my God, I'm going to change my terrible company name to this because that's exactly what I do. I only focus on regions. So we've been doing that. I started the company in December 2011. I came out of the Sustainable Tourism Cooperative Research Centre. I was the manager of research extension. I was there for 7 years. When I entered that, I had a whole heap of research that academics from around the country had been doing around food and wine tourism, around culinary tourism and farm tourism and nature tourism. And they said, nobody's using this information and we don't know why. And so my job was to read the research, translate it from academic research to industry available information, and then convert that into knowledge that people could use. And I still do that today. So I pull data and information from around the world around what consumer trends are and what people are looking at, and whether it's visitor trends or food consumption trends or just trends generally, and data, and look at best practice around what's happening around the world, around farming, around food systems, around food tourism and around culinary tourism, gastronomic tourism, whatever term you want to use, and of course agritourism. And so I've been doing that now since 2006. I had a whole life before that, but it all seemed to blend into this role that I do. As I spend my time, I do kind of two things. We work with individual farmers and groups of farmers to help them look at ways that they can innovate and diversify to become more resilient or to create a pathway to market for their produce, fresh or value added. We do that in a group so that they work together and then they form a regional cluster, and then you build that critical mass.
Yeah.
They start to learn to work together. And then we do a lot of strategic work, so a lot of strategic planning development and a lot of policy development, and really trying to solve the wicked problems that the industry can't solve on their own. So one of the key things that I identified back in 2006 was, if you just publish a piece of information and put it on a website for people to read, they're not going to even know it's there, let alone being able to work out, well, how's this applicable to me? So really what we use is a form of education and interactive storytelling to take people through a process of, is this right for me? How do I go about doing it if it is? And then what are all the regulatory and compliance things that I have to go through to make it happen? So it's about education, it's about business planning, And it's also about then converting that business plan into a business, right? So that's the agritourism side of it, right?
Or product, if they're already
But
business
some people we work
exists.
with actually don't ever open the on-farm thing. They take a product and we help them to innovate that product further. I mean, recently we've done a small-scale abattoir scoping process. So we work across that. So it's kind of, why do an abattoir thing? But it's not. It's actually about understanding, solving wicked problems. So that's what we do. We solve wicked problems by being really thinking outside the box. So that's the first thing. So the strategic stuff around policy and advocacy for change, the reason why a lot of farmers don't get into agritourism is because the system doesn't really allow it to happen, because in the land use planning world, government regulation, a farm is a farm and all you do is you plant seeds or you graze cattle or livestock and then you ship them off and somebody else makes all the money. What we want to do is help the farmer create a value chain rather than being at the, arse end of a supply chain. What we want to do is create a value chain that helps farmers to be able to get more of the price that the consumer pays. When I first started doing this, I think I worked out that on average, most farmers are getting about 10% of what the consumer pays for fresh produce. I just want you to think about that.
10%.
About 10%. We did some work in southeast Queensland and we identified that, those two little lettuce hearts, the little lettuce.
In a plastic.
They're about $3. Plastic packet.
Yeah.
The farmer has to purchase the seed, grow it, wash it, cut it, pack it, and ship it to the supermarket. And they were getting on average about 19 cents a heart, a lettuce. And you're paying...
Anyone that's heard that will never look at that the same.
No. And that was... So they were getting... I think it was 19... And I have to check. I can't remember whether it was 19 cents per lettuce or 19 cents for two. I actually think it was about 19 cents for two. And that includes all the cost of doing all of that work, growing it, packing it, shipping it, paying for all the packaging, all the shipping, everything. So all their costs, they take all the risk, they get the least reward. And all the money's made at the retail end, and the distribution end. And so what I'm trying to do through agritourism is to create pathways to market for farmers to be able to diversify and literally just make more money. Because how the hell are we going to eat if farmers aren't profitable? Why would you spend, between floods and fires and hailstorms and, cyclones and other natural disasters, droughts, they take huge risks in producing food. So we've got to be able to help them. If we want them to keep growing our food and fibre, we've got to help them we've got to create regulations that allow them to not only produce food, but to be able to actually extract greater value out of that. And for some people, that's agritourism. For some people, it's creating a branded product. And for some people, it's diversifying altogether and utilising an asset on their farm that isn't currently in production. It might be an old wool shed that they're not doing sheep anymore, so they're going to use it as an event space. Or it might be about putting accommodation, turning shearers' quarters into accommodation. Or it might be they've got this really beautiful conservation area they can't do anything with. But they could set up some nature-based tourism. They've got bird watching and, they could set up some glamping tents there. And what that's doing is giving them revenue by utilising and investing in the environment. So we've just got to think outside the square about, in this country and around the world, I'm actually the chair of policy and advocacy for the, wait for it, Global Agritourism Network. I know it sounds flash, doesn't it? Not as flash as your microphone.
No,
but
it's still gold though. I get it.
But the thing is, these are the same problems around the world. Regulation and legislation that make it impossible for the individual farmer to be able to do what they want to do. Right here in Queensland today, if a farmer wants to set up a small farm gate shop, the local council might decide that that is what they call a material change of use because it's not pure farming. And so they would have to pay anything up to about $20,000 just to lodge an application. So how do you make money without all the reports and the traffic reports and the flooding reports and all the other reports and maybe even making contributions to the road network to put up a farm gate stall? Imagine if they wanted to do something bigger or better. Just imagine the costs associated with that. So the point here is we're using a sledgehammer to crack a peanut. What we really need to do is to think about how do we help farmers innovate and diversify so they stay farming and profitable. And that's what this is all about. Now, New South Wales, we worked on with the New South Wales Small Business Commissioner, a woman who at the time her name was Robin Hobbs, and she is an angel. because I spent almost over a decade trying to get somebody to listen to, we've got to do something about land use planning. Robin listened. We went through a process of ground truthing and testing how the rules were being applied by different councils through some pilot programs, which I ran. We brought a group of farmers through that. We took 35 farmers through that across 3 local government areas. And in that process, we identified, not my words, but one of the land use planners that were working with us at the time from Sydney, we identified that a small-scale lavender farm who wanted to process their lavender on farm, so distill the lavender that they cut into oil and then process that on their farm to put it into bottles and then to open a retail shop. It would be harder for her to get approval to do that than it would be to open a multi-storey, multi-use building in the centre of George Street in Sydney, because the planning system does not recognise the sorts of uses that farmers might want to do unless they just want to be a price taker at the arse end of a supply chain and just grow it for the man to make money up the chain. So it's really the rules are designed for commodity agriculture, and not everywhere in the country do we have commodity agricultural sized land. And even commodity scale farmers, some of them want to diversify and take some of their commodity production and add a small value to it, so that they can maybe have a small percentage of their production is as a branded product, or maybe diversify. And that might be about succession planning and bringing other family members onto the farm. Might be about when those family members come on, their partners who have got, skills and knowledge from the city around marketing or tourism or hospitality, or they might be an accountant, or they might have a business head. They go out to a property and then all of a sudden their partner's working on the farm because it's a family farm, and what do? So the opportunities to be able to create other businesses, align with that product. So many great examples of people who could do things. Really good example, when we were in the Murray, think about Rich Glen Olive Estate. And that
I actually thought of them.
Oh.
I went, that's a great example. I thought, I had a thought bubble because I recently did some work in Echuca.
Yeah. And they've opened a shop there.
They've opened a shop. I bought the can of olive oil.
Yeah, you can buy
but the e-commerce, but even the e-com, the journey from buying the produce in the retail outlet. I mean, I'm still I'm on a journey with them now.
Totally.
It was just brilliant. Even that I bought the tin, the big, I don't know how many litres, 10 litres.
Yeah, me too.
But they also gave me an empty bottle. I just thought that was so clever.
Yeah.
Don't put our gold oil in your
shitty
crappy supermarket.
recycle.
Yeah, and they gave me a $10 voucher straight away. Just their retention strategy now.
Yeah.
And to keep me as an e-commerce customer, knowing that their visitors or their customers might not all, because they're in a regional visitor destination, might not always be the local. And I thought of Rich Glen Olive.
Well, let me give you them as a case study. So
they're a perfect case study.
They're a really good case study. So think about them. So when Frank, bless his soul, is not with us anymore, Frank Vodjacek, who was the dad, and Maria, mum.
Oh, I thought Rose. So Rose is the daughter.
No, she's the daughter-in-law. Hang on, let me
get intergenerational. Yeah, okay.
So Frank and Maria started the olive grove, 36,000 olive trees, and they were about to pull them out when Damien, their son, married Rose, who was a chef, and they were about to pull out all the olive trees because they were getting $2.80 a litre for their oil wholesale, and it was costing them over $5 to produce. Then started developing these products. Cut a long story short, it was because of the partner that saved the business, because they were value adding.
Yeah.
And without them, and now they've got 3 retail stores.
Yeah.
But government regulation actually closed down their farm gate.
Right.
Because they wanted them to put in a very expensive access road. They changed the highway. The government changed the highway. Wanted them to put in a very expensive access road. So we can't afford to do that. We will never recoup that money through that. So what their strategy has been is, instead of doing it on farm, they still grow everything on farm, manufacture everything on farm. And then they have one in Yarrawonga, which is their home. They opened one in Echuca, and now they've opened one in Bright. And they also then distribute and sell online. and they distribute through Woolies, some of their products through Woolies, the high quality Woolies. So that's an example.
It's a perfect example.
There's an example of a business, and Ros and Damien are these incredibly generous innovators that work with everybody. And
when I went in, it was Ros's daughter managing the Echuca store.
That would be Hannah.
Yeah, it was Hannah. See, it's not just little. I think that translation intergenerational, and another thought bubble that I had, it's almost like food has also become almost like, it's such a distinguishing, it's part of a placemaking story. If I go with that thought bubble, that through food, I felt like that was it was almost like I took a souvenir from the region. I love that I've got,
food's the new souvenir.
Food's the new souvenir.
Food is the new souvenir.
Yeah.
And that's become their slogan, one of their slogans. But that's something that I used to say to our farmers. Food is the new souvenir, because that's what people, when they travel to regions, they buy stuff and take it back so they can share the experience. But they're sharing a sensory experience because they're taking the taste home. So you've got to try this. I met this great farmer.
Yeah.
So when we go back, like we've driven up to North Queensland, when we go back, I've just been out to a farm, out to the Ruffalo's farm. So I've got all these jams and chutneys that I've just picked up that she makes from their orchard. On the way home, I'm picking up literally a truckload of pineapples from Yeppoon, because they're the best pineapples I've ever eaten off the Pikes, who have incredible pineapples. And, and we'll be picking up produce along the way, and we share that. So when we go home, that's literally what we do. Everywhere I go, there's always like, what have you brought home this time, Mum? It's always honey and whatever. But that's what people do. They buy produce, and whether it's wine or whether it's honey or whether it's whatever it is, they take that back. And what they're doing is, when they go back, they share the story of the producer. Word of mouth marketing, the ultimate word of mouth marketing, because they share the story of the experience.
Yeah.
And then the sensory experience of taste this, how good is this?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Can I tell you the ultimate food tourism, agritourism experience?
You must.
Look, so in Italy, I'm boasting now, went to Bolzano to the Global Agritourism Conference where I was presenting, then went to Bologna.
The food in the stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And went to an area, just Rosola Dairy, which is just outside Bologna. And they have a rare breed white cow there that was the original cow that made the Reggiano Parmigiana cheese that almost died out. So this farm has saved the breed from extinction. They exclusively milk these white cows, from Moderna, Bianca, and they make this incredible, beautiful Reggiano Parmigiana out of this milk. I bought that cheese back to Australia. I went to the farm. I met the farmers. We did the tour. We saw the cheese being made. We fell in love, had a tasting, met some amazing people. Daniela is gorgeous. Anyway, so I bought a heap of cheese, and I still have some of that cheese with me. And you can bring it back into the country, just so that you know it wasn't a biosecurity risk. I did check. With the the Australian biosecurity to make sure that I can bring in, and as long as it's from a commercial dairy that is prepackaged, then it's okay. Which it was all cryovac and sealed. I've still got some of that cheese. And every time I slice this, I never give too much of it away. It just wafer thin, and I give try this. And they go, oh my god, that is the best parmesan I've ever tasted in my life. It's like, anyway, but the point is, from over there to here, how far will you? How many times will I tell that story? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so this is the thing. Once visitors experience it, once they share, once they get to know it, once they've got that emotional connection, that's what food tourism can do. That's what agritourism can do. That's what it can do. So connecting agriculture and tourism together is really important.
And we were talking with Hamish earlier about packaging, and I see that. I mean, I'm out in the Yarra Valley, seeing an operator, a beautiful boutique hotel, having the mini bar and everything in there locally produced.
Oh, totally.
Food, wine. So even from packaging, from a regional destination, and encouraging operators to collaborate through food.
Yeah.
I think that's getting better and better, but there's still a huge scope of opportunity.
The problem we've got is we don't actually have local food systems in this country. Now, this is the next great frontier that we need to face, both as tourism and as communities and as farming. Our food's designed to be packed up in a box and sent off to a central market somewhere a long way away. Food doesn't get grown locally, it doesn't get distributed locally necessarily. And so we actually need to create the systems and mechanisms that allow people who want to grow food for the local market, the local consumption, to be able to come together and sell and distribute that food. Now, farmers markets have got a really important role to play. There are other mechanisms that we need to put in place so that restaurants and cafes can access that food as well. So we need a retail distribution hub, which could be a farmers market or retail outlets, but we also need a back-end wholesale system to be able to support that distribution so that pubs, clubs, restaurants, hotels can serve food and say this food is from this farm and know the provenance of that food. Now, that's where we need to go next, but we also need to do it for food security. We need to do it to develop vibrant economies and to create an incubator for innovative food producers to be able to go next level, because they start locally, they test it, they trial it, they get the confidence, go, hey, I really love making this and my customers love it too. Maybe I could make more of it and maybe I could sell it to the next town, or maybe I could send it overseas, right?
Yeah.
So this is a really important economic development initiative for regions, but it's a really important social and environmental initiative, but it's a really critical component to getting, if we want gastronomy in this country, we want food tourism in this country, we've got to have local food systems that support local supply, local production, local supply and distribution of food that has provenance in it.
For a local government, any regional destination around the country, what's the first step here?
What's the first step?
The first step?
The first step is to really find a couple of local champions. There will be people, there will be farmers, there'll be a couple of restaurants, there'll be some people out there that are really keen to want to do agritourism or want to be able to create food tourism. Sit down and ask them, why isn't it happening, right? Or they could reach out to the local association. They could get in touch with ART and get in touch with us. They could, in Queensland, get in touch with Agritourism Queensland.
Is that the only
state with an organisation at this stage? Yes.
For agritourism, yeah.
At this stage, yes.
Yeah.
Find out if there's a local food group. Find out if there's a local farmers market. Ask people why there aren't more farm gates. Why, when you come to Mackay, you find it really difficult to find local food? Why is that? And listen to the problems, right? I will guarantee there'll be two problems. I can tell you what problems are in any community, and they are fundamentally land use planning regulations and no food system. And if we can resolve, like we did in New South Wales, or circling back to the New South Wales Small Business Commissioner, we worked with them, we developed Australia's first fit-for-purpose agritourism planning code. And that allows farmers to do things on their farm without putting in a DA on a certain size, scale and frequency.
DA.
Development application, planning permit.
Yep, gotcha.
Checking.
No,
good.
Checking.
Thank you for checking.
What I thought. No, really, I had no idea.
Terminology is terrible.
Yeah.
So without having a council approved planning permit, they can do certain things at a certain scale and a certain frequency, as long as it is linked back to their production, as long as they are a legitimate farm and it's to do with their production. So there's that. And then there is, if they want to go up and do more, there's another level and then another level. But we now have a set of the country's first fit-for-purpose planning rules. Every other state needs to get on board and do exactly the same thing. So I know a lot of other states are looking at it. We're here in Queensland today. I'm going to talk to both the potential premiers that are sitting there from the LNP and the Labor Party. You're not going to watch this podcast, but I'm going to tell you anyway, and hopefully someone will share it. You guys need an agritourism planning policy. You need to support Agritourism Queensland, and you need to absolutely look at the opportunities, because with the Olympics coming up, if you don't have agritourism to facilitate dispersal out into regions, if you don't have local food on the menu, you don't start working on this now, you won't have it in time for 2032. Little lecture for the state government. But what they need to do is start with...
We've got time.
Yeah. But every community can have agritourism. Every community can have local food systems, and we should, because agritourism is not just for visitors, it's also for locals. If we can change the planning rules and we can support local distribution, the farmers' markets, if run like they do in Victoria, with their accredited farmers markets. Hats off to Victoria. You guys do a great job with Farmers Market Front. Better than just about anybody, I think, in terms of really getting out there and putting the accreditation in and making sure that they're real farmers. That whole process really has opened up a whole range of food innovation and artisan production, and some of them have scaled up and gone bigger, and some of them just stay local. But it's a distribution hub for local food, and people eat fresh, seasonal, regional.
I love my local, and I'm in suburbia in Victoria. It comes to the local primary school.
Love it.
And I just feel like I'm doing something good for everybody in the ecosystem, for my family, for the farmer, for the businesses.
Totally.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that because, I thought that earlier, like the farmers market, to the point where, still have to go to the supermarket from time to time, but sometimes I don't feel, especially now, I don't think, buying a twin pack of lettuce knowing.
Poor bloody farmer.
But it is like where you've got an opportunity. But I do love in Victoria that was something only if we went for a weekend away.
Yeah.
We had, but now it's really every suburb has an opportunity to have a farmers market.
And what's great, the farmers are coming to the city where the people are living, and it's worth their while to do so. But there's also farmers markets in regions, which is really wonderful. And that initial, and I don't remember whether it was Brax or Brumby because I can never tell the difference between those two premiers. One of them put $1 million. It was just $1 million. It wasn't a lot of money to support the farmers market initiative in Victoria. And I think there's something like 400 producers. I think the last count was 400 producers who supply farmers markets.
Yeah.
There's 400 farmers in Victoria.
Yeah.
There's dozens and dozens and dozens of these farmers markets. And not only did it help farmers create a pathway to market where they could talk directly to the consumers and educate them, it's brought fresh, local, seasonal food to the consumer. It's educated the consumer, and it's spawned this network of, food tourism and culinary tourism and
that's what it feels like.
Agritourism,
right? I feel like I've got regional Victoria in the primary school.
Yeah,
like you've got
the
apples from Gippsland.
I love it.
Yeah. Same.
That's really fantastic. So for me, that's what we can do. And my vision for the future, and I think we can do this if we all work together, is that we can really create in regional areas these hubs that just reflect the people who live there, the characters who live there, the farmers who are so full of wonderful stories and just fabulous people, their produce, which they're passionate about, and they produce with absolute love and dedication. And then to be able to explore and connect to some of the most beautiful places on the planet that are being looked after by farmers. Some of those farmers have got stunning locations on their property, and we've got no access to them. But by creating agritourism, we'll get to connect and link. We'll get to understand where our food comes from. We'll get to appreciate, what an amazing job our farming community does. And where the hell would we be without food? We all eat, We all eat. Some of us eat more than others, but we all eat. But we are so blessed in this country. So agritourism and food tourism in Australia is a massive opportunity, specifically for regions. But even then, taking that produce into the city so that the city chefs can be talking about this produce comes from this farm, and you can go and visit that farm. So how good would that be, being in Sydney or Brisbane and going to one of those amazing restaurants and then being able to scan a QR code to say, oh my God, these incredible blueberries, we can actually go out to the Hawkesbury and pick them. Or we could go down, we could go to Orange next weekend and we could go picking cherries, and being able to go, oh, wow, imagine that. We can do paddock to plate. Imagine if we can go plate to paddock. Imagine if we can take people from restaurants out to the country. That's possible. That would be great. We can do that. It's not hard. Yeah. We just have to have the will.
Yeah.
How to do it.
And we're having the conversation, like you said earlier, there's been forums, but to have, I think yesterday was brilliant, to have TA lead the way with this, and we've got incredible Kate now, in there, like
fantastic.
as a leader within TA. So you can see there's real traction. And I like it, but specifically, I mean, it's a benefit for all of us, even if you're not in Queensland with the Olympics coming up. Huge opportunity to start thinking about that now. Is there anything we haven't covered? Is there thought bubbles or, around yesterday, key takeaways you've taken from today? What's inspired your thinking from the content?
I think the content, I think it's really wonderful to see what TEQ are doing, Tourism and Events Queensland are doing. Trisha's doing a fantastic job. There's some really wonderful people. The collaboration with the RTOs. I have to say, Mark Olsen's presentation around risk. I love Mark. Mark's amazing. He's a font of knowledge, and I knew he was doing an amazing job for North Queensland. He's one of the most generous, considered, intelligent humans I think I've met in the tourism industry. He does an outstanding job. But the way he presented that today,
it was brilliant.
It was absolutely brilliant. And I think that for me was a real standout. Yesterday, listening to the Agritourism Forum and listening to Kate Homerup, who's the president of Agritourism Queensland, that was really wonderful. She's always absolutely on the money, lived experience in terms of her agritourism journey and the challenges around what they're doing and have been doing on their farm, trying to meet the rules and regulations that are constantly changing and being reinterpreted every time there's a new set of council people coming in. But also just the other presenters that were there yesterday talking about, the oyster farmer. I mean, how good was that?
Oh,
that
brilliant.
Gorgeous woman.
Brilliant.
And she's talking about how, 4 years and every oyster, which is from a tiny spat to a beautiful oyster, 4 years to grow, and 10 times those oysters have been touched by human hands because they're grading, grading them and processing them. When you think about that, and I said to her, I don't know whether you were there, but I just said to her, what that does is change the perception of value for me. So if I think about a dozen oysters and I think, oh my God, they're $28 a dozen now, or $35 a dozen. But when you think about the fact that it's taken 4 years to grow that, and all the, the risk of potentially losing the entire crop, 4 years worth of production, that 4 years worth of production through a flood, and the risks that these people take. And, you would look at that and go, this is such a precious thing. I shouldn't be eating a dozen at a time, and they should be worth 10 times as much.
Yeah.
So the value proposition changes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think her presentation was great as well.
Yeah.
All of them. They were all really good. I think every presentation. What I love about this conference, it's like coming home. It's like you're meeting up with a lot of people from around the country. You see them once a year. We all have things that we can share with each other. We all have knowledge we can share. We're always learning off each other. It's a very generous community. And I think that lovely coming together once a year is a really important thing. It takes you, you always take some knowledge away, but it's really great to have your soul boosted by people who
I love that. It's an artful soul booster. I think that's a really, yeah.
Fills your cup.
It feels, it's definitely a cup filler. Oh, Rose, thank you. I'm glad we finally made this happen.
There you go.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for dropping in. Thank you for incredible knowledge. Hope I see you before the end. I mean, this is
sounds so
this
terminal.
is a yearly,
I hope I see you before the end.
No, it's a yearly reunion. Art is. Hope our paths cross in the next 12 months. But all the best with what the mission that you're on and you've been on for a long time.
Yeah,
it's really pleasing to see the progress from when we first met, and I'm just like, how have I not met her before? She's incredible. So it's a pleasure. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching the replay. More to come. We're coming to the end of the day one, but there is a whole day two coming tomorrow. And we'll see you tonight, yeah?
Arrivederci.
Yeah, arrivederci. Yasu.